Sometimes it seems like the world is run by chimpanzees, even though some of them might come with college degrees. It's getting hard to separate the facts from fiction, but I think I can say with obvious conviction that in this old world, everybody's wrong but me.
Welcome to Uncommon Sense. My name is Charlotte Laws, and I'm your host. And today we're going to be discussing the 2008 presidential election, the Fairness Doctrine, and talk radio, a new reality show where contestants stand in the shower and sing, and a mother who sends a stripper to her son's school by mistake, but pretty funny. First, I want to introduce my guest, and I have here Clifford Jacobs, who is a member of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council and also the Director of Animal Welfare for Van Nuys. And you always seem to be out and about, involved in city issues and in so many groups, and you seem to always know what's going on. So it's great to have you here to discuss these topics.
Thanks, it's great to be here, Charlotte.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk about stupid pet tricks, but we are going to go into stupid human tricks first. And there were a couple of articles recently. One was about a woman in Hong Kong who happened to swallow her toothbrush, a regular-sized toothbrush, and she was able to call emergency 911 or whatever it is in Hong Kong and get help and survived. And there was also a story in Berlin about a man, an old man, about a 91-year-old man who was mending his roof, and he fell and got stuck to the top of the roof, and the police called him like a beetle on his back. So he was like thrashing around, and the neighbors saw him thrashing on the roof, stuck to the roof, and called the police, and he was rescued. So I'm just wondering if you've ever done any kind of stupid things or had anything dangerous or crazy happen to you.
Well, no hijinks stunts like that, but I did do some stupid things in my youth, as many people do. Probably the stupidest thing I've ever done was picked up a cigarette when I was 14 years old, and I ended up starting to smoke and smoked for 17 years.
Wow.
And, you know, thought it was cool and everything else. Like,
did you do it because a friend suggested it, or you just did it on your own?
It was curiosity, and my dad was a smoker. So that kind of made it okay for me to experiment with. And my dad would hang out in the bathroom downstairs in the morning as we were getting ready for school and have a cigarette. So as I got older, I got bolder. And a couple of mornings, I even went into the bathroom and had a cigarette and got busted by my older sister and things like that. But that was a pretty stupid thing to do, but no real hijinks. I did want to talk about that man who was in Germany on his roof.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first thought is, what the heck is a 91-year-old man doing on his roof, fixing it? Okay. You know,
he maybe wanted to save money. Maybe he's just a fix-it man, and you know.
You would think after 91 years he would have done enough in his lifetime to maybe trade, you know, something a little safer.
Right.
I give him a lot of credit for climbing up there and doing it.
Well, let me tell you about my crazy story that happened about 20, 30 years ago. My ridiculous, stupid thing that I did. I went to a party at Liberace's house, and this was the piano player, the very flamboyant.
With the candelabra.
The candelabra, Las Vegas piano player. And so he had this little party at his house, and I took a date. And so we go to the event, and we said good night to Liberace at the end of the evening, and he closed the front door, and we're walking down the side, you know, down the path to this big gate, right, this big fence and gate around his property. And we get to the gate, and it's locked. And I was too embarrassed to go back and knock on the door and go, "We can't get out, your gate's locked." So here we are, I'm in like my evening attire, my date is like in a tux or something very fancy. We start climbing the fence, and apparently there were some kind of detection devices on the fence which sounded off an alarm. And so we barely get over the fence and like jump into the bushes. These police cars come up, you know, like screeching and halting. Liberace opens the door to find out what all the ruckus is. We're in the bushes like totally freaked out. And I hear Liberace say, "I have no idea why the alarm could have gone off." And then we like ran to our car after the police left, and that was like, oh my God. And all we had to do is go back to the door, but we didn't do it. So that was my really stupid thing that I did, which was in my youth.
So did you have to hide out in the bushes until the police left?
Yeah, but they left really fast because there was obviously no trouble. So they left like 2 minutes later. So that was it. I also read an article recently about in New York, they're trying to pass an ordinance regarding restaurants, that chain restaurants, and this affects about 10% of the restaurants in New York. that they would have to list the calories for every item on their menu. And of course, the restaurateurs, the people that own the restaurants, are extremely upset about this idea because they figure no one's going to eat there anymore if it says, what is it, double Whopper with cheese is 990 calories. So, some of these are pretty caloric. So, I don't know how you feel about the idea of listing the calories on menus.
Okay, I believe like a lot of fast food restaurants now actually have a separate sheet that lists all the nutritional value of the foods, calories, carbohydrates, proteins,
they do?
fibers.
They really...
Like if you go to McDonald's, as a matter of fact, you can get the sheet, you just have to ask for it. But many restaurants now provide the information upon request. It would not be a smart marketing tool to have your calories or any of that information necessarily on your menu. I like what the American Heart Association does, and they put heart healthy, a symbol for heart healthy foods and things on a menu, so when you're ordering, you can choose amongst the healthier foods. I definitely think putting calories or nutritional value directly on a menu is the wrong thing to do.
Really? I actually think it's a great idea. And I also think what it would do, instead of just having your standard menu, I think it would give incentive to those restaurants to have a lower calorie option of the same thing. So they'd say whatever it was and the number of calories, and then they'd say without oil, without whatever it might be, all of a sudden it would be fewer calories, or they'd start putting vegetarian options on, or they'd have more healthy options on their menu because they wouldn't want to lose the business. So I actually like it. But the head of the Obesity Society came out against this, just like you were, and the members of the Obesity Society, there are like 1,800 members that are very angry, and he said, well, the reason he was against it is he thought people would not eat at the restaurant and they'd go home and pig out. So that was his reason. But they feel that he has a conflict of interest because he's apparently supported some kind of restaurant association, and he's kind of has this other lobbying effort going on, and so they feel that he has a conflict of interest. But I like the idea of really having more options, like vegetarian options, which are much healthier. One of the things that I always wanted to do is, how you have restaurants in Los Angeles and maybe other cities too, where you have a ranking like A, B, C, that kind of thing, for how clean it is and that kind of thing. I'd like to have a V in the restaurants windows who have at least 2 vegetarian entrees on the menu, so that vegetarians would be able to say, oh, I can eat here. There will be something that I can eat and it's not contaminated. In other words, in the kitchen, they're not putting meat in when they're cutting it. They're using different knives and that kind of thing. And I think that would be a really big plus.
Oh, that would be. And Elmer Dills and even Zagat's could adopt that into some of their criterion when they rate restaurants, perhaps promote it that way. I know with the trans fat issue where they banned trans fats in New York, I know that was very controversial. But where is the line drawn between what the government is going to do that's good for you? I mean, we look at things like the safety belt. So now seatbelts are required by law everywhere, and there's lots of billboards, commercials, and things that say, buckle up or you'll click it or ticket is, I think, the latest slogan. Okay, so now they're going to regulate what we can eat or where we can eat, or, what about portion size? So if you're going to have calories, then maybe restaurants should offer, like a small, medium, and large size of every entree, or, where does it end? Where does it
regulation is what you're doing. And that actually goes into our next topic, which has to do with the Fairness Doctrine, which was repealed in 1987 because they said it was not serving in the public interest. It was violating free speech. But not too long ago, we had this Immigration Reform Act that came up. And talk radio was really kind of the leader in getting this overturned, at least for the time, where Congress just felt like they couldn't pass it because they got got people riled up. Talk radio got people riled up so much in this country. And both Democrats and Republicans, Trent Lott came out and said, talk radio is out of hand, and Dianne Feinstein agreed, and John Kerry agreed. And so the politicians were very upset about the idea that the people and talk radio, because talk radio is kind of, to me, like the new town hall leader that kind of puts people together and gets people organized and makes them, fight for various issues. They were very upset about this. So now there's been a lot of talk about putting the Fairness Doctrine back. And you know what the Fairness Doctrine is, I assume?
I do.
Yeah, and it basically says that both sides of an issue have to be presented.
Okay, so what's fair about that? What's fair about allowing both sides to present an issue? What if one of the sides has a lot of experts and the other side doesn't? Where do you find a true balance?
Well, I don't even think they're just two sides. I think that's already kind of a false notion to say, oh yeah, there's just two sides to an issue.
Exactly, and people like to think in black and white terms when there's often a lot of shades of gray.
Yeah.
You know,
and even if you take like stem cell research, you know, and you say, you know, the conservatives don't like the idea of, you know, tampering with human embryos, and then the progressives want to cure disease. Well, you know, my perspective would be when I look at stem cell research, I say, well, how's this going to affect, you know, research on animals? Because I don't like the idea of research on animals or vivisection. And so are more animals going to live or die if we have stem cell research? And that's a different perspective, but that's not something you're going to hear when you turn on cable news or you turn on talk radio in general, whether they have the Fairness Doctrine or not, because it's not really one of the two, you know, perspectives that are put forth. It's not the liberal and it's not the conservative perspective. It's kind of like something different. And I think it's very important that many perspectives get put forth, but I don't think it should be mandated by government. I agree with you. Government control is not good in this area.
Absolutely. And as far as the Fairness Doctrine is concerned, I think censorship in any way, shape, or form is not the right approach. And under the guise of fairness, the Fairness Doctrine really isn't fair and doesn't really promote anything more than equal time. Okay, it doesn't promote anything fairness other than an opportunity, and I think there's ample opportunity out there for talk radio hosts to portray whatever side they want and to further that position.
Right. Do you listen to talk radio?
I do sometimes.
What shows do you listen to?
Bill O'Reilly mostly, and we'll just leave it at that right now. But
there was a report called The Structural Imbalance of Talk Radio that came out, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago or a year ago. And I think it's a highly biased report, which not many people have really, I don't know if I've heard anyone say that, but they said that 91, they did an analysis, and actually it was, I think, liberals who did this analysis, but they said that 91% of talk radio is conservative and only 9% is progressive. And the reason why I know this is a bogus report is because they said KFI, which is a Los Angeles station that I happen to listen to a lot. I particularly like to listen to John and Ken show and the Bill Handel show. They said is 100% conservative. And I do not consider either of those two shows to be conservative shows. And Bill Handel, in fact, if you look on the internet, he's listed as a liberal talk radio host almost everywhere that you look. So I know it's a biased report, but there is this idea that talk radio is conservative, and talk radio people love to say, well, we have more conservatives in this country, and you know they're the ones who they want to listen to us, and these are conservative listeners. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are a lot of independents like me who just want entertainment. They want information and they want entertainment, and it doesn't matter if it's, you know, Sean Hannity, who I hardly ever agree with. I still put him on sometimes. You know, I put on Bill O'Reilly sometimes. I put on people that I don't necessarily agree with because it's entertaining. And I do put on, do you ever listen to Air America, the progressive channel?
No, I don't.
Well, I listen to it sometimes, and one of the things that offends me about it is they call themselves, you know, the progressive station. I mean, that's like their tag. And to me, that's such a turnoff. It's like if KFI were to say, or one of the other stations were to say, the conservative, you know, station, I'd be like, oh, I think I'll turn it off. It's conservative. It's like, oh, it's progressive. I think I'll turn it off. I mean, I don't want somebody, you know, I don't want to feel like that's the only view I'm going to hear by turning on this radio station. I would think that the hosts on Air America, on a progressive channel, they feel like they have to be progressive. I mean, could they go on there and say, well, I think we should secure our borders? They'd probably get kicked off. I mean, can they really be free and have that free speech, or are they going to be fired from their jobs? You know what I'm saying?
Because they probably have to stick to what, right.
Yeah, and that's what I think is really offensive. And I think that we have, you know, a lot of independents, you know, in this country. And I think people don't understand that. People think that everybody's either left or right, and that's it. And those are the only two viewpoints that really matter.
Right. Those strong, hard lines have really disappeared. And now you have conservatives that are liberal-minded. You know, Governor Schwarzenegger is one where they say he's a Republican, but he sort of has a lot of Democratic tendencies.
Well, there's social liberals and fiscal conservatives, as people like. And I think John McCain is like that, which is, you know, we're going to talk about politics later. And, you know, I love that whole group, you know, people that are social liberals and fiscal conservatives. I agree. You know, you have those people, and I think that's really great. Washington Post had an article that said 58% of talk radio listeners are independent voters, only 23% are Republican, and 14% are Democrat. And I remember, and I never listened to Rush Limbaugh hardly ever, but I remember one time I did put it on for a few minutes, and a caller called in and said, you know, I agree with Air America, I'm a total liberal, but you know what, they're just not entertaining, so I always listen to you, Rush. And I think that's a big problem, has been a problem with liberal radio, KPFA, KPFK, which are very liberal stations, but they're very serious. They never crack a joke, and you just like after 5 minutes, you're like falling asleep, you know. So anyway, so that's, yeah. So I think that's right. Definitely a problem they have, and they need to, you know. I think that, you know, Air America does have some good shows, though, I will say. Yeah. Well, the next topic has to do with this mother who she meant to order a gorilla. She cleared this with the school in advance. And her little son was 16 years old, and it was his birthday, so she wanted to send a gorilla singing telegram to the school. However, the singing telegram company screwed up, and they sent a stripper. So the stripper not only spanked him with a whip 16 times to the Britney Spears, one of the Britney Spears songs, and
that was after she paraded him around the classroom in a collar and leash.
Right, on all fours.
On all fours, she walked him around the classroom.
That's right.
And then gave him 16 little whips on the backside.
And she stripped down to her bra and panties. The teacher was standing there the whole time, didn't say a word. And then she wanted him to rub, the little boy, to rub some cream on her butt. And that's when the teacher said, wait a minute. Which I can't believe it took the teacher that long to say anything. It's pretty amazing.
Well, to her defense, some of the students did indicate that the teacher was in shock over the whole episode.
So she couldn't move. She was like,
right, and
I don't believe this.
Just to clarify, the stripper put the cream on her buttocks herself and asked the student, the 16-year-old.
Oh, that makes it much better.
To rub it in.
I'm so relieved.
To rub it in, but you know, you have to look at.
Have you ever hired a stripper or been to a party where there's a stripper, or
I've
had any associations with strippers in any way?
Well, I've had minor tangential dealings with strippers.
Yeah.
You know, been at this place or that place, a bachelor party or whatever. Never actually ordered one myself or was responsible for that, but understand what they do and understand the value of that kind of entertainment. It's not appropriate for school, and I don't know that having a gorilla
is appropriate either.
Come to a 16-year-old's classroom. You know, I understand sending a tray of cupcakes. You know,
as long as you have one for everyone in the class.
At any age, or having, you know, the party at home. But when you're turning it into a social event, you know, there was probably some checks and balances that could have been initiated right in the very beginning, like when the clothes started coming off. To get down to bra and panties, I think, is a little drastic. The fact that nobody stopped her until that point, you know, maybe they're a little randy over in England.
Yeah, this was in England, too, that this happened. Well, I sent a kind of a stripper telegram to my boss when, many years ago, I was a private investigator, and this was the vice president of the company who I had a very, very close friendship with. And as a birthday present, everybody in the office knew. And I sent this girl that I knew. She was actually a friend of mine who did, like, singing telegrams. And she came in pretending to be a prospective client. And she goes into his office. She had, like, a high heel, like one high heel and one flat shoe on. So she was walking all crooked. So she looked really weird and unkept. And then she took out, during the time she was talking to him, she took out a bottle of alcohol out of her purse and started drinking out of the bottle. And he was just like freaked. We were all like listening at the door, and he was like going, Dale, come in, you know. He was like totally freaked out that this person, you know, and I think he was afraid of like sexual harassment or whatever. And then they came out of the office, and she like did this little striptease thing down to like old lady, really baggy, ugly underwear. It was very funny. So that was my one experience, and it was really great. It worked out really fun.
Well, when you think about that concept, how unique is that to have, you know, something so off the wall? You know, that doesn't fit into any real category.
Right.
Having a disheveled alcoholic housewife or something, you know, show up, and that's a little on the weird side. I didn't know that there were companies that would offer that kind of a thing. I have a friend who does grams, you know, deliver grams, rabbi grams, and they do weddings, bar mitzvahs and things, and dresses up into any kind of an outfit. He's an actor, and works with a company that does that. They actually are quite lucrative. It's a great business for people, you know, and it's unique.
Well, the next topic is your favorite, reality TV. And there is an Indian TV show that's starting. It's a reality show where the contestants sing in the shower. And you don't have to be young, you don't have to be pretty, you don't even have to be a good singer, you just have to be entertaining. I mean, what will they think of next for reality TV? So do you like, I know you like reality TV because you kind of mentioned that earlier to me. And
well, I have one favorite show that is recently airing. It's produced by Randy Jackson, and it's called America's Best Dance Crew.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've seen that, I think. Yeah, I've seen, oh, no, maybe I haven't. There's one like that I've seen. There's another show.
Wow.
I don't know if that's produced by him or not, but they have like street dancers.
Exactly. That's what this is.
Kind of fun.
I am so hooked on this, and I could never really understand the mystique of when Survivor first came out and everybody was glued to their TVs. For me, it wasn't as exciting for me. I saw one episode. I said, well, what's the fascination here? But then I started looking more into reality TV shows, and from the Flavor Flav, from that show, and
God, that's outlandish.
It's pretty
I
ridiculous.
like Project Runway. I like Project Runway. I love looking at the fashions. I think it's so fun to see these designers come up with creations, and I like Top Model too because it's the fashion and the photos, and it's kind of fun to see a glimpse at that world.
You know what they're doing now is running whole seasons. Back-to-back episodes, like on a Saturday morning starting from 8 or 9 in the morning, and they'll do 5 or 8 episodes, and then another show will air for an hour or two, and then they'll go and finish.
Like marathons.
Right, the whole season, so you can actually kind of follow it.
You don't even have to watch. You just wait to the end of the season, and you watch the marathon, and you see the whole thing at one time.
And in the background, while I was working at home this couple of weekends ago, I did watch America's Top Model with Tyra Banks, and watched it all the way through.
Yeah, it's a fun show. I like it.
It's kind of interesting, but I'm really hooked on this America's Greatest
the
Dance Crew.
No, I think it's a good show.
I'm a hip hop kind of guy from back in the.
You seem like a hip hop kind of guy.
From yesteryear, but there's all these shows on MTV. It seems that are reality shows. There's one with the Kardashians, Kim Kardashian and her sisters, and the mom, and the father, I guess, who married her, is Bruce Jenner, the decathlon star from the Olympics. So he's involved in the show, but it's just all about this family. The Ozzy Osbourne show. It's getting a little bit ridiculous.
I mean, writers aren't going to have a job anymore because there's so many, reality shows, and they don't need writers for those shows in general. I mean, it's just regular people. They don't have to pay actors. They don't have to pay writers, and they just stick you on. So that's it.
Well, what happened with people? What happened with people living their own lives?
Yeah,
they're living vicariously.
But everyone has to watch their lives. Otherwise, it's not meaningful.
Well, one of the more intense shows that I saw recently is something called, I think, The Extreme Effect, where they have 2 couples, and one member from each couple is the ex of the one member of the other couple. They take them to this fancy kind of resort hotel. They don't know that each other is going to be there. Okay, and then what they do is they send a message to each of the new boyfriend or girlfriends to meet in the lobby. And what happens is they leave the exes together, and they sort of have a chance meeting, and then they end up in a suite of rooms where it starts off with 2 bedrooms, and they can sleep where they want. There's a connecting door, and they talk, and the other couple gets to observe them and watch them through different means where, they're basically spying on them.
Do shows like that's just really tacky, I think. But
it's kind of horrible when you think about, having to watch your intended person or your hook up with somebody else, and then they actually are honest with the,
I wouldn't watch a show like that. What about the election? I would watch that. I'm obsessed with cable news. I watch it all the time. So McCain now has, this is like March 7th. 2008, just for people watching in case it's airing a week later, and
there's no more
the Republican nomination, and now we have the Democrats fighting it out. Hillary and Obama are about 150 delegates apart currently. We have Michigan and Florida delegates that we don't know what's going to happen with them, if they're ever going to surface or not, and then we have the superdelegates. And currently, I think Hillary's a little ahead with superdelegates. Now, who are you supporting for president? Do you want to admit who you're supporting?
No, I want to keep an open mind. I don't want to commit right now. What I find is interesting is the amount of attention this year specifically. And I don't know if it's just myself, okay, that's evolved into, you know, I turned into my father and my grandfather now, where I'm really interested in the national politics.
No, it's because of this whole election. It's because people like John McCain and Huckabee come from 2% and all of a sudden they're the leader. It's because they didn't have much money and they ended up being the final two standing in the Republican Party. It's because people like Obama that, you know, everyone thought Clinton had it wrapped up, and all of a sudden Obama's way up there and more likely to win. So I think that's why people are excited, because it's like watching football or something. It's like a real contest, and you have the little people, you know, the underdog is actually rising up and winning in many cases.
Absolutely,
so
and they're so close. The Democratic race is so close, and I think it should be, and I'm enjoying the fact that it's a back and forth. And I like that recently Obama took a lead and won 11 states in a row, and then Hillary made the big comeback. Okay, it's kind of exciting watching. It's almost a horse race, back and forth.
Right.
You know, what it's going to come down to is within the Democratic Party, okay, you can break it down into its simplest terms, and everybody realizes that we're talking about, you know, a woman, the first possible woman president. Okay, now that's discounting Nancy Pelosi as third in line for the presidency, God forbid something should happen. Okay, but really, between those two ladies, Nancy Pelosi was the first real possible viable female president when she became the Speaker of the House. Okay, but now with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, is it going to be the black male or is it going to be the white female? Okay, as the bottom line. You can build policies, you can build platforms and everything else, but are people going to vote issues, or are people going to vote people?
They vote personality is, I think, what they vote, and charisma, and who's, you know.
It's funny when they talk in the polls.
It's not so much an issue-based
right,
decision. I think in general, I think that's what people do. So we're not going to get through all the topics today. I don't know if you want to try to run through one more really fast, which has to do with this pop star in Hong Kong named Jackie Chung, who has fired 21 maids in the last 3 years, and now he is on the blacklist. He is banned from hiring any more maids. His last maid is actually in jail because she stole from him. So that's exactly what happened. So, you know, it's kind of, there have been a lot of issues with maids being taken advantage of, though, not only in Hong Kong, but Saudi Arabia, various countries. And it's, you know, being raped, and I mean, all sorts of horrible things that have happened. So,
well, I understand that it was, that they were...
I have to wrap up.
Got it.
I wanted to let you hear what you had to say, but you know, we'll do this another time, and I want to thank you so much for coming. And yeah, we'll definitely go over this topic again in the future. So thanks for joining us today, and I hope we brought some uncommon sense into your life. As you putter through your day, remember, everybody's wrong but me. See you next time.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Sometimes it seems like the world is run by chimpanzees. Even though some of them might come with college degrees, it's getting hard to separate the facts from fiction, but I think I can say with obvious conviction that in this old world, everybody's wrong